Hey friends, and welcome back to our channel. So there's a lot of reasons why Californians would want to migrate to Utah, but many of them actually end up regretting the decision. In this video, we're going to discuss the 5 major reasons that might make it a bad idea for Californians to relocate to Utah. So go ahead and stay tuned.
If this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything about living, eating, sleeping, working, and playing here in northern Utah, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market in northern Utah.
We are Sloan and Kim Peterson with the Peterson Group, and we've been in the real estate business for 10 years, and every day we help people just like you looking to buy, sell, and invest in northern Utah, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're looking to move in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. All the information's in the description below, so we can go ahead and help you make that smooth transition to northern Utah. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay, so we have had a couple of friends who've made the journey from California to Utah, only to find themselves back in California for a variety of reasons. The first reason we're going to talk about is maybe the misconception that since Utah is less populated than California, the traffic is much better. Yes, our traffic is significantly lighter than what you might be used to in California. However, because we don't have maybe as good of a public transportation system as California, you almost have to have a car to commute anywhere. There's also the fact that our infrastructure hasn't been able to keep up with the amount of growth we've seen the past few years. So during rush hour times, you can definitely expect to see some major traffic jams. The traffic is not necessarily worse than it was in California, but many newcomers are taken aback by how hectic it can be in Utah. They boast that it's a breeze to travel north or south from Utah. You can take a direct route down the I-15 corridor, but getting to points east or west can be challenging due to heavy traffic and inadequate road and infrastructural capacity, especially during rush hours. If that's one of the main reasons you're moving, less of a commute time, then you may want to consider how far away you're willing to live from your job in order to really escape that issue.
Now, the second reason many Californians may come to regret leaving the state for Utah is the politics. Utah is a red state at heart. Now, if you take a glance at California, you're going to see that it has a distinctly blue hue. It's pretty liberal, and that's the general consensus there. We know that the state occasionally does lean red in the state's rural and smaller town areas, but California as a whole is definitely going to be more on the liberal side. In the event that a person does decide to relocate to Utah, they may be taken aback when they do announce that, hey, I'm going to be moving from a blue state to a red state, but for some, the change may be welcome. That's not always the case though, and that's not always the best option for everyone. Remember, in reality, close to 60% of the voter in Utah did choose red, and 40% did choose blue in the most recent election. At least before the last presidential election anyway, that was about how the votes were distributed. So that's really something to keep in mind if you're looking at it. If you want to be more in a left-leaning area, you're gonna stick to downtown Salt Lake or maybe even more north to Ogden. But as you do leave those areas, even in the suburbs to the southwest and east, and even the north, things are going to start to change. It's just really important to remember that you will encounter such things, and they may become as a surprise to you if you're coming from a large city like San Francisco or Los Angeles. Such things might be the norm there, and for them, it's going to be a transition and maybe a slight twist. Again, some people may love the change, and some people might not realize just how much it will affect your daily life. That's just something to consider and research a little bit if you have never had to think about moving somewhere that might not share your same political values that you're used to.
Okay, so the third reason, and I personally actually think one of the biggest reasons people may not be happy with their move, is Utah weather. Now, we've discussed Utah weather many times in many of our videos, like almost every single one. So definitely go check out some of our other previous videos if you want to hear more about our crazy weather here in Utah. But many of the people we've talked to are leaving Southern California, and they've said how much they love and miss the consistent weather. The first thing is that in Utah, you are going to get all 4 seasons. But beyond that, something people might not consider is how fast the variations of weather can change and what it's like to actually live in those climates. In fact, there is a joke here that you can actually experience all 4 seasons in the same day.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sure, you're still gonna have the nice mid-70s temperature days, but those are actually few and far between. For example, this year we went from perfectly mild 70 weather to mid to high 90s basically overnight, and that isn't uncommon here in Utah. We consistently have swings and shifts from 20 to 30 degrees overnight, and it can be really hard to adjust to that. It's even hard for us as Utah natives to adjust to that. The summers are extremely dry with almost zero humidity, which I know California can be fairly humid, so that makes the heat a little bit more difficult if you aren't used to that dry air. Then of course you have the snow, which a lot of Californians have never really experienced. Some things to consider is having to shovel every day, commute in the snow, and having to go outdoors when it's single-digit weather. Utah rarely shuts down for snow days, so if you are moving here, definitely know that life continues to happen even with 3 feet of snow on the ground. Just some things to consider if you are thinking about making the move here to Utah.
All right, moving on to reason number 4. Well, we're going to discuss the declining affordability that we now have here in Utah. A few years ago, it was possible to purchase a home in Utah for a very affordable price. On the other hand, I now have clients who actively seek me out to provide me with their financial plans. When people say things like, hey, I want a 3-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, and in a good area, I often have to respond with, okay, you know what, you're probably looking at about $560,000 at the base level. They're often taken aback because they do really assume that Utah would be more reasonably priced than it is. And considering most cities of the same size, Utah actually is still below the average of affordability. It is a known fact, though, however, that Utah's cost of living has skyrocketed in the past few years. It's possible to find cheaper parts that are farther from the city center, and some of these smaller communities still have really great real estate options at affordable prices. For example, the median home price in Weber County, which is about 40 minutes from Salt Lake, is closer to about $400,000. But in the area of St. George and the rest of the Wasatch Front, it's going to cost you a pretty penny if you want something like that. One thing to consider, though, is we do have fairly larger houses here in Utah, especially when compared to California. Many people have unpleasant things to say about this, like, I really don't need 4 or 5 or even 6 bedrooms. I'm just really looking for a place with 2 bedrooms, maybe 3 bedrooms in a decent neighborhood with a nice house that has a little bit of its own character. And sadly, we don't really have that to the extent here in Utah. For example, you could be moving here from an $800,000 California home that was probably just 1,200 square feet or so, maybe 1,500 square feet in size. And in Utah, for that same price of $800,000, you're probably going to get a home with 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, 4 to 5 bedrooms, as well as a study, 2 to 3 garages, and a pool, maybe, a bigger backyard and things like that. Therefore, although the cost might be comparable, the value that you receive is going to be significantly more, and there are further financial and cost-effective advantages in Utah as well. You can save money by moving to Utah from California because of the reduced income taxes and other perks that we do also enjoy here in Utah.
Okay, so the last thing we want to talk about, and one that has to be brought up if you're moving to Utah, is the dominant religion. And here it's Mormonism, or the LDS Church. It's possible that this won't shock many people, but I can guarantee that the most striking difference you'll encounter in your new home will be the prevalence of religion. Moving to Salt Lake City or elsewhere in Utah means immersing yourself in a community where the LDS Church plays a significant cultural role. If you aren't a member of the LDS faith, you should know that life in Utah will be rather different from what you're probably used to. Sloan was raised in Utah, and we do have to say that things have come a long way in terms of becoming more diverse. But in Utah, the church and the state do intersect quite a bit, and the church does have a lot of influence in terms of different laws and cultural things that you would find in your day-to-day life that maybe you wouldn't find in other states, and in particular, you definitely wouldn't see in California. And that can be quite a culture shock for someone moving here from another state. Now, there can be a lot of good things, such as safety and value set, that come with a predominant religion. But again, it's just being prepared and asking the questions that would make you feel like you are making a good move here to the state of Utah.
So that wraps up the video about some of the things that might be different if you're moving here to Utah.
We hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Picking where you'll call home is an important decision, and we would love to help you make that smooth transition to northern Utah and cities like Salt Lake. If you're looking to purchase in the northern Utah area, we would love to help you out. Give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email, and until next time, we're keeping it real. Estate.